Hired workshop, Mastering the Art of Networking. We're pumped to have you here and even more excited to introduce Matthias Feist, a careers consultant from Queen's University Belfast, who's about to share some serious networking wisdom. I'm Kendall, and I work in talent engagement and university partnerships at Hired. And I will be co-hosting this session and supporting Matthias throughout the workshop as we dive into mastering networking today. I want to share how Hired is uniquely positioned to support your career journey. Our Global Career Service Hub is designed to streamline early career recruitment, connecting students like you with international career opportunities through a strategic network spanning over 400 business schools and hundreds of employers globally. We do this through three ways: jobs, internships, and career resources, such as workshops like today, virtual career fairs, tips, developmental tools. At Hired, we work closely with employment opportunities across diverse sectors from technology, finance, healthcare, consulting. And our platform really tries to connect you with international roles that can support your career, whether that is in a global or a local opportunity. We're trusted by the companies and the career service departments because of our history of identifying and connecting students and recent graduates with meaningful and relevant professional opportunities. As you explore these opportunities, remember that your career journey is more than a series of jobs. It's a continuous path of growth and impact. Now, here's the cool part. Hired isn't just for now, it's for your future too. And it's about building a legacy of opportunity. Today's students, like you, become tomorrow's mentors. When you succeed, you're not just advancing your career, but you're actually creating pathways for the future talent. We hope that one day you'll partner with Hired to give back and recommending opportunities from the company you're working at to be the next generation and recruit the next generation of ambitious early career seekers. We hope you will think of Hired and reach out to us when you are in your dream job. Talk about a full circle there. Now, let's talk about today. We're lucky to have Matthias here for the next hour, hosting Mastering the Art of Networking. Matthias brings years of experience in guiding students towards employability success. And this workshop, you will learn practical strategies to build meaningful connections. Now, here's a little food for thought before we get started. Networking is all about engagement, interactions, and building meaningful connections. And guess what? So is this workshop. So let's make this session come alive. Drop your questions, share your thoughts, and get involved in the chat. Let's keep this fun and interactive so we can provide you with a space to grow, learn, and connect. Thank you everyone for joining. And it is my pleasure to welcome Matthias. Over to you, Matthias.
Hi. Hello, hello. I'm unmuted. Excellent. Hi, Kendall. Thank you very much for the warm and informative welcome. It's really funny just the things that you said about this kind of circular economy of being connected and turning from student to kind of professional in experience and then becoming mentor again. I could have added just 3 slides just onto that, just based on that thought. But we're really trying to kind of condense it today on networking. Now, mastering is a big word, but I think with practice and using fairly simple techniques, there's a good way forward from today for all of us. So, as has been said, my name is Matthias Feist. I've been a careers professional and alum professional and enterprise educator for quite a long time now, hence the graying beard. And I am delighted to run this session today. Part of this is what I teach my students at Queen's University Belfast, and I also work in the startup scene as well. So I've been advising people for decades on how to find jobs, keep jobs, apply, leave jobs, find the next one, in some cases, create their own jobs. So, and the one theme that comes out of this on a regular basis is that people build networks with each other. And that's often, even if they don't do it in a structured way, it's astonishing how many people fall back to their networks as they go through their careers. I used to go into first year undergraduate classes and tell people to look around, because quite often people 10, 20 years later would still be working with each other. And having been doing this for a long time, I can really confirm that that's the case. So the art of networking. Let's have a look. A quick context for here. I'm wearing a hat, warm with my warm tea here, because I'm in Belfast and we have a red storm warning. So once this session is over, I'll actually be trying to get back home before anything happens to the transport services. That's why I'm kind of slightly less. I'm recording not from a studio or from an office setting. Just be warned there. But technology, we've tested everything. Should all be going. I can see your stream of questions, and I welcome, invite you to post into the comment stream, and I will pick up questions as they come along, as I can see, as they see them emerge. I am prone to, on occasion, say, wait a minute, I've got an idea here. I'm going to pick this and I'm going to throw it to Kendall, who will put it into the stream as well. So there is a good chance that I say, oh, I've got an idea. That's not in the slides, so we'll bring it in. And that's often based on your input. So give me something to interact with. I'll also, and this is how the session will go, there'll be some talking from me, and there'll also be a kind of a double action exercise that I'd like you to do. So it may actually be quite helpful to have your LinkedIn accounts open, because that might be something that we might do. And again, post, interact in the chat. Right, the elephant in the room, the iceberg. Now, I want to be able to see, I'm giving a, it's actually hidden on my screen at the moment. Yeah, here we go, that's better. 68.3874% of jobs are in the hidden job market, or something similar. Whenever you're basically getting instructions on how to find a job and network yourself into a job, you'll be finding that someone will throw some kind of statistic at you. Don't believe a figure that you haven't made up yourself, which I clearly have. But it's not far off from the figures that are being kind of pushed around when people talk about the hidden job market. But the question I'm really asking is like, really, are 2/3 of jobs not advertised? How can we know? Are jobs for a specific industry? Is it really that much? You'll be from, this is an international audience. Is that the same in Norway as it is in Japan? So generally, don't believe the figures, but believe the general ratio. So really, yes, really. But what is the hidden job market? I put a picture of an iceberg there. Think of it in those terms. There are jobs that are visible, that are advertised, that are being published, that are being circulated, in order to attract a wide range of candidates. But those are the minority. And why is that the case? Well, because far more people are about to advertise jobs, are about to publish something. And the iceberg gets chipped away at, the visible part of the iceberg gets chipped away at because, well, jobs are being taken. People come, stake their claim. So how do we get to this underbelly that's under the water that you can expect to be larger than what's being visible? Well, these are all the jobs that haven't been advertised just yet, that are in planning stage, that are just declared, or they are available, but they're not really being published and advertised in a widely enough to be visible. I might not be putting it on LinkedIn. It might not be put on a job board. An employer may have a kind of a policy not to really go out because they get lots of candidates anyway, or they only go for a specific pool. So we can accept that there is a hidden job market, and we have to accept that it's probably a significant chunk of the actual job market. Now think about that for a moment. How does that affect the way you should be kind of job searching, and how's it connecting to networking? Let's take one thing out of the equation. Networking yourself into a job, into the hidden job market, that has nothing, well, shouldn't have anything to do with nepotism. It's not that these jobs are being withheld from you on purpose. It is that they're not just there yet. That's probably the best. They're like liminal jobs, to use a big word here. So can you get a job in the hidden job market? Well, I was thinking about, do we look at networking from this, just like the general principle, or do we, as most of us will be business students, business and management or related fields, let's look at it from this hidden job market perspective. So can you get a hidden job too, even if you're an international student, somewhere else than you were normally building your career? So let's look at this. A lot of people go into business education, into postgraduate education, specialized masters or MSCs or MBAs in order to kind of reach one of three goals, and sometimes more than one of those, and kind of different location and elevation in the role that are there, that are in there, they are in, or a kind of shift into a different sector. There's, for all of them, is kind of a certain kind of movement necessary. That means they're moving out of their comfort zone. A lot of international students are quite literally going very far away to gain qualification and to then find a foothold, even if it's just for a specific time. Queens, I work with a lot of students who are looking at a kind of post-study work visa, which allows people to stay in the UK for 2 years. Well, how do you find a foothold? And as someone who's now living in this fourth country, I know how hard it can be when you're going somewhere where you quite literally know no one. So what makes allies so important is also that they have local or cultural knowledge, not only of the kind of region or country, but also of the sector and industry, sometimes a specific cluster of companies that work and think, have a culture that works in a specific way. Allies are important to help you understand that, to lift yourself up from candidates that basically just shoot at that visible part of the iceberg, but who are able to dive in and gain access in another way. And let's think about that again. If you have a very visible employer, very visible offer of jobs, you can work on the assumption that a lot of people will be going for those. So your competition is significantly bigger if you're applying to these kind of large advertisements. This is a classic example. If you're going for kind of top employers, however you define them, everyone's going there. That means you're competing sometimes with hundreds, if not thousands of other people for the same type of position. Now, diving into that hidden job market using networks in order to secure opportunities, that can give you an advantage. Yes, this is all confusing because, again, hidden, where? How do we go about it? And also, how on earth can I network myself into a job? Well, let's have a look. So, what will we learn today? We will learn today two things. We're going to learn how to find people to connect with and how to network online like a pro. Those are the two very kind of reduced aims we're trying to go for, and there is plenty of that. Reduced only in terms of volume of slides, but not in substance and heft. Networking is, let me have a look at this. What does it say on the slide? The exchange of information or services among individuals, groups, or institutions, or specifically, the cultivation of productive relationships for employment and business. So there's already a direction implied, a purpose. Now, this is also something that doesn't always translate very well across cultures. I wanted to get onto that culture point because I know what a global audience we have here today. So I am socialized German because I grew up in Germany. I've lived in the UK, I've lived in Japan, I now live in the Republic of Ireland and work in Northern Ireland. And in each one of those cultures, networking is defined very very differently. I did a post a few days ago, which basically said, when I came to the UK and people said, oh, go networking, I was like, eh? And I'd worked in career services before, but the concept of what German word would be Netzwerken, sounds very German, was very different from what I said. The idea that I would somehow build professional relationships that would offer me a benefit professionally, not even talking jobs, that was weird. And I work with a lot of people kind of worldwide, kind of clients that I work with who are, I don't know, someone from Tanzania trying to apply for roles in Norway. The difference in culture when it comes to building network is massive. And every country, every culture has networks, but they're often differently defined, and they don't necessarily fit into this very kind of bland explanation, cultivation of productive relationships for employment and business. That can almost feel inappropriate in some cultures where the only appropriate and official ways that you qualify or certify yourself into jobs. What's that networking got to do with it? And then, and this is in an environment, my case, for a long time where this didn't happen online. And then online networking came along and you started doing it remotely. And I think personally that things have gotten easier because it used to be that you go to an event, you've got to work the room, you've got to find people that are useful to you and then somehow engage with them in that weird dance that then is supposed to build networks. But nowadays, people connect remotely with each other. And if you're hanging out on your social media, and if your social media connections in any form start benefiting from you, or you are benefiting them and they're benefiting you, that is networking. And the nice thing is that I think that has gotten easier because what you're trying to do through networking, especially if you're looking for jobs, if you're trying to apply in unfamiliar cultures, sectors, companies, what you need are allies. Networks help you find allies. And if you really do it well, it's not like I've got all these single connections to people. It's about people you are connected to being interconnected with each other. So you're not just building single allies, you're building your own squad. Right, let's look at technique number one. And this is a technique that is pre-COVID, pre-online. It's a classic way to build network allies with people you don't know yet. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants here. A lot of the advice I'm giving here, specifically the informational interview section, is looking at the work of the great John Lees. I've put a note for Kendall into the chat here. Let me just put this here. So it's worth checking him out on LinkedIn. He's a very successful author, and he writes books, book series on how to get a job you love. And it's actually doesn't tend to be geared towards students as much, but kind of more career changers, people who are maybe tired of their career, kind of trying to move on. And his advice has always been, yeah, you can apply, of course, but the chances that you're getting a new, rewarding, great position significantly increases when you're looking at people rather than jobs, when you're looking at connections rather than just organizations. And I think he's absolutely right in my experience. I'm happy to share this later on, my own experience. This is a technique that works. So informational interviews. An informational interview is not about a job. The idea is that you go out and develop real world contacts and you find clues. Let's say you are interested in working in fintech and you notice that, I don't know, Paris is a strong place for fintech startups. These are all things that really interest you. And well, you're not in France. And well, your tech knowledge may be limited, or you may have worked in tech, but not in fins or financial organizations. So where do you kind of go from there? Where do you start? Well, you can obviously start applying fintech jobs. You find enough job boards, send applications. Remember the iceberg. You are shooting towards, you're trying to chop away at that visible part of the iceberg. Also, the part where everyone else is with that little hammer is trying to chip away. So how do fintech startups see themselves? What type of person do they try to identify? What do they identify as like a top performer? How do you match your skills to the skills, the reality of those jobs? Because let's face it, a lot of written job descriptions don't really describe the job that you'll actually be doing. They describe a job that of management thinks should be what the new hire is doing. But effectively, the moment that's been written down, it starts to kind of melt away, because especially, for example, in startup type environments, these things are very, very fluid. And I've joined jobs where everything changed between the time I got the offer and me actually showing up. So it's decoding the culture of an organization or a role. And it's about identifying attributes, but it's also like picking up the language, the lingo you will need in interviews. So how do you gain access to this information? Well, the technique for informational interviews, actually, I have a link. You see, I told you I'm going to start picking up things as we go. There is a very, very good article which you should all read on this topic, and it's called "How to Get the Most of an Informational Interview," and it's by the Harvard Business Review. And if I find the link, I'll actually post the link there. But that's worth a search. I haven't seen anything yet happening in the chat here. Kendall, are people posting in the chat? I don't see anything on my screen. But I mean, they might just all be odd and it's all wonderful. But can that be checked? Are there any questions or any kind of comments? I haven't seen the links that are posted there either yet. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Yes, Kendall.
Yeah, I have been posting the links. I see them going through. And there is a comment or a question, I guess.
Yes.
And the question is, as a shy person, how to connect online and approach to others without being online without being inconvenient.
Okay, well, who's going to be inconvenient? Are you going to be inconvenienced? Well, yes, networking, as I said before, I think networking is a scary thing. And it is actually probably more scary if you have to do it in person, but you're really touching upon a dear questioner. You're really touching upon an important point. Generally, and I'm going to stick with the informational interview. The nice thing with the informational interview is because you are not crowding someone. You're asking someone for a small ask. And ideally, you're asking someone to connect to through someone else you already know. And I'll get to that in a moment. So if there's a warm introduction, someone who says, I know Frankie, and they would really benefit from having a conversation with you, Joe. So through someone you already know, getting the opportunity to connect with someone new who's, for example, much closer to fintech. Let's stick with that example. So human connection is a good way, even for a shyer person, to get that connection. And the way you phrase your questions and you run the informational interview is designed to not be inconvenient to the person you're speaking to. So let me go further into it. And if there's a follow-up question, Kendall, I fear you will have to read them to me because I don't see them in my stream here in Restream. So that doesn't seem to be working. Oh, can't hear you.
I have your back. I'll come online.
Excellent. Just jump in. Yeah, feel free to jump in whenever someone. It's almost like a dialogue. You will have to. That will have to channel through you. So please also say it in a voice like you think they would be asking it to just make it more interesting. Excellent. Thank you.
Will do.
Right. Okay, so we're jumping back to the informational interview. I just need to be able to see see my screen. So the aim is to get like 10 to 15 industry experts. So imagine you're on your LinkedIn profile or any other. I'm fully aware that there are parts of the planet that LinkedIn hasn't reached yet. Believe me, they will try because the company motto is to map the whole workforce of the planet. So they'll be on it. But you're actually not looking at your first level connections. You're looking at the connections of your connections. And it's worth doing a search for second level connections, for example, on LinkedIn. Put finance or fintech or something in the search field, and then basically see if you have second or third level connections. You may not know someone who is working in Paris in fintech, but you may know someone who does. So that's the kind of person you want to have a conversation with. Everyone who has more experience than you in this field is an expert. And you're trying to ask the person you're connected to ask for the favor to refer you to them. And it's incredibly important to respect your interviewee's calendar. So you're really asking for kind of I don't know, 15, 20 minutes with you on a Restream call, on a Zoom call, on a Teams call, whatever you choose, because, well, you'd probably be far away. And actually doing that online is really useful because it feels less intrusive on someone's calendar. So again, if you're a little bit more shy, you have a little bit more of an element of control and allow the person you're talking to is controlling it. So that's also good. And then you follow up with gratitude. And the big difference between an interview and an informational interview is in an informational interview, trying to find out stuff. Try to build connection. You do not throw your CV or resume at them. You do not ask them for job opportunities. You have to play the long game. You follow up with gratitude, not demands. You ask questions like this. How did you get into this line of work? Everyone loves talking about themselves, if tapped appropriately, and people will share. If someone's being asked for advice, they normally like doing that. So it's not an imposition in many cases. What do you enjoy about the job? What's not so great in working in fintech and a startup? What's changing in the sector? That's probably the most important question, because when you're applying somewhere in that hidden job market where you don't know where any things are moving, try to find out what's the next thing they're thinking about. And what kind of people do well in this industry? Now, that's a little bit of a loaded question, because in many industries, people who look like me often get along much better because of unfair networks and nepotism. So the question there is really to work out what kind of skill set do people need in order to succeed. So to wrap this, the informational interviews about finding out about a sector, a job culture, and so on. However, there's one more thing that you need to ask after every individual informational interview, and that is, with whom else should I speak? So let's look at this. You ask a friend, an acquaintance, someone you know, a lecturer, and so on, to introduce you to, let's say, one other person. Maybe you ask 2 or 3 people to introduce you to 1 or 2. So you've got like 3 people to start with. You then ask, after you've done these questions with them, and they know you, they have an idea, you have not asked them for anything else than information. And can we stay connected? And would you know someone else to talk with? Suddenly, you might be seeing another 5 or 6 people with whom you do the same routine. Now, John Lee says that actually it's not that first level of people you didn't know provide you with more opportunities, because you're still connected, you're still in their opportunities aren't hidden to you. It's actually the ones that one further out, people you don't even know exist, that are connected to you by kind of 2 steps. Informational interview is the classic route into finding those connections out. If there are no questions on this, I'll probably kind of revert back to this topic later, but I wanted to talk to you about the next, thank you. Thank you, Kendall. Kind of about the next topic, and that has to do with online networking. So the technique that we looked at was informational interviews. And the next one is something that's kind of widely taught kind of in universities, and that is to use kind of social media, online presence. But the most important thing, and I point you to the last bullet point on there, I can see this here, that is, it's about connections, not followers. So let's look at this. In order to have someone kind of trust in you enough to connect to you online, be available for an informational interview, or hire you after you applied and they check out your profile, is to make sure that you're there. That's the first thing. Now, sorry, I read a lot of LinkedIn profiles, and the one thing that almost all of them don't do enough is actually creating and consistently sharing content. Now, LinkedIn specifically, but every kind of social media sites work on engagement. If you do not keep your account active, you will be deprioritized by the algorithms that run these sites. LinkedIn, for example, is no different to that. The idea, and I'm going to give you like a step-by-step formula, what you can do in order to make sure that you're doing all the right things on there, is to be kind of visible. But not only that, but also active and present. I see a lot of polished LinkedIn profiles, and they're still all dead, because the first thing I look is, when did you post last? Oh, it's 6 weeks ago. Yeah, my interest drops. So generally, whenever you're communicating with potential employers, don't play down your strengths. Be different, but not weird. Now that's that's a difficult, sometimes a difficult balance for some of us, but it's about being distinctive. It's about being remembered when other people talk about you. Be authentic, be yourself, have opinions, wide opinions, even on LinkedIn, but don't be offensive. Again, that's, sometimes we need to find out how not to be certain things. We'll all kind of bump into limitations, into kind of invisible borders that we cross, and then we handle it well, hopefully, and kind of roll back from it. We'll find what I'm trying to say is, find your voice that's distinctive, that people will remember through your communication style, and think of the connections you make this way as connections, as people, not as followers. So you're not, as in many social media jobs, you're not trying to build as many followers as possible, and kind of, you're not trying to sell them an idea. What you're trying to do is win them as allies. Now, here's your formula. Pretty much for any professional website that you're engaging in, but you should share and like content every day. If you're sitting on the bus, you're playing with your phone, don't know which, don't know, Blue Sky or TikTok or whatever is currently forbidden where you are, don't do that. But go on here, spend your time browsing through professional updates from your wider network. If you like something, push the like button, at least once a day. And if you like something really well, share it to your friends. You're creating social credit this way. And you'll need that, because that is what will feed your, that will kind of feed your network. If you're applying somewhere, this is fundamental, absolutely fundamental. I'm going to stick with the LinkedIn example. If you're applying for a company, make sure you follow them and all the interesting employees who do maybe a similar job than the one you want to do. Why is that so important? It is so important because in the future, their job adverts and news and so on will drop into your feed. But you need to be a little bit more active than that. You also need to contribute to a thread at least once a week. So instead of just saying, oh, cool, hey, share, you should also pick up a discussion somewhere and just, well, you don't even have to say something. This is quite often hard for people, especially, again, if you're shy. It's like, I don't know what to say, really. It might sound stupid. It's not. Well, you can ask a question. Oh, you said something about AWS. Oh, you said something about accounting standards, Basel. Well, could you explain that to me? What you're doing is you're interacting with someone else. You are rewarding someone for the time they spent creating content. And, oh, I see some posting coming up. Oh, how do you transition from casual networking conversations to discussing potential opportunities without seeming pushy when you look for a job? My, that's a long question. That's amazing. Perrine, thank you very much. That really popped up right there. Okay. That's cool. I like that, Kendall. Did you like push a button or something?
Yeah, learning new features.
Amazing. Good. So how do you transition from casual networking conversation to discussing potential opportunities without seeming pushy? The answer is you don't. Let them come to you. Build the network. Let them know that you're looking. But I would actually, under most circumstances, not mention it. If you build a strong relationship, they'll know. And if you are active enough in their bubble, they see that you're looking for opportunity. If you build the right relationship, they will think, I have some people I care about who are in my network, and they sometimes shift a little bit where I know they're actually not really happy where they are. So I'm always on the lookout. Whenever I see a job for myself, I'm thinking, actually, this might be something for my friend so-and-so. Let them do that. If you're friends, if it really kind of becomes a stronger bond, that's the moment you can also say, I'm really struggling, what do I do? But I would let that happen organically, Perrine. Right. But then again, you can play this like a little billiard here as well. You can play this. You know, Frank is watching you because you've been talking, and you post something about finding a job in someone else's thread. You're not saying it to Frank directly, but you're letting the world around you know that you're looking. That's the social in social media, even on a platform like LinkedIn. Once a month. And this may actually be easier for the shy people amongst you who like to retreat back and have their own thoughts and then start writing them down. That is to create and publish your own content piece once a month. Now, I did an exercise. I don't know how many of my Queen students are on here, but one of the assignments I gave them was to film themselves during they had like a day where they were doing an event for a day where they helped a charity that looks after people with disabilities, basically build a playground and a kind of leisure area for them, proper nuts and bolts, literally building structures together as a team building exercise and as a charitable action, kind of leadership and citizenship type stuff. I asked them all to basically film themselves as they were being rained upon because the weather was atrocious, caked in mud, film themselves doing this. A 1-minute video, maybe a couple of notes to it. And the content people produced was amazing because they're all like on TikTok and Instagram and so on. They know how to cut a video, that music, they edit it, they did it as a team. And some of them then started posting that on their profiles, and they should. That's content production, and it engages people. General advice is if you have a feline advisor, a cat that can help you in your post, you should obviously bring that in as is in the picture. As you know, cats rule the internet. So, oh, is there a question?
We have a question.
Okay.
It is, what is the most common mistake made when networking? And how can we avoid it?
Okay, my answer would be to be too transactional, to be too pushy, to expect to see this as a transaction. I do something, you do something for me. Right. Networking is about building fruitful relationships and not expecting much from each other, but letting the good stuff come to you. And the good stuff comes to you if you are being visible, entertaining, and engaging. Oh, it's there. Now the question has appeared. Was the common mistakes when networking? But it is try less hard, if that makes sense.
It comes back to your authentic
yes,
point. It's not for that one moment, it's for the future discussion.
Yes, it is, as they used to say, if you work the room, people will notice if someone's working the room, someone who already looks over your shoulder to see if they find someone more useful to them. The whole point is, to be honest, probably the best thing that you can do is not look out for benefits for yourself, but try to be as helpful as you can to others, because they will reciprocate sometimes just by saying, oh, by the way, a friend of mine is hiring. Do you want to speak to them? The answer is, of course, yeah. So the mistake is trying too hard to get something out of it. Feed the network. It's not gardening. That's why I said earlier, connections, not followers. you're not trying to milk that network. You are trying to cultivate it so that it freely shares with you. And which kind of goes back to this here, online networking like a pro. You follow the company and people on LinkedIn and other social media. You read their content, you like, engage, you post content relevant to your current application. Now that is a good one. If they look at your profile and they're in a fintech in France, you should have content that pertains to that. You should be showing that you're reading or consuming content on that. You should share it, your profile, even if you're not in a fintech in France, it should feel like it, and you can create that impression. And we've all learned that now, this kind of social media competence to a certain extent. And then from there, you can also identify informational interview partners, people you've connected to. Yeah, they may not have offered you a job. I've done that. I've asked people in organizations where I didn't get the job that I connected to, often at interview. Sometimes the people that got the job over me, because I found out who they were, for a little bit of advice. Fruitful relationships come this way. And then you stay with them, even if they turn you down for a job. Because unlike, I always make that joke, sorry, unlike dating, where you normally don't get a second chance when you ask someone out and they say no, when you are applying somewhere 3 months later, you can be right back on the mat. Oh, it didn't work out last time, but I actually really want to work for you. I see you've got another position coming up. That's where you show the kind of tenacity, where you're sticking on. Right. We've got another little bit less than 10 minutes. I have a task for you now. We looked at 2 techniques. We looked at informational interviewing, and we looked at how you cultivate online networks, and you kind of bring those together. But I'd like you to do something active, 2 things active now. I want you to not think too deeply, but I want you to put the title of a content piece that you intend to write. I'm not going to check. That pertains to what you actually want to achieve, that you want to go for. I want you to put that into the chat. Let them pop up. Make something up. Sell me vaporware. It doesn't have to exist yet, but punch a title in there. The second thing I'd like you to do, and this is where I'll have to ask Kendall, I think you can scan this QR code with your phone, but this is a link to the original announcement of this webinar. And
we have it in the chat now.
You've got it in the chat now. Amazing. Yeah. I want you to post a comment in that chat. Remember what I said earlier. Try to be helpful to others. Contribute to their conversations. Like, share, do this with this post. And then look each other up, because everyone who's posting on that thread now will be someone from this seminar. I want you to connect to each other. So what you're doing with this double-edged exercise is you create content, you kind of semi-commit to a piece of content that you want to create. That's a bit of a promise to yourself. And the other thing is, go into that post, talk about networking. Make it critical. Say, oh, Matthias, I've got another question. Well, bring it up, no problem. I'll answer if I'm kind of tagged in. I'll share my account in a moment as well. But I want you to connect to each other. You come out as having been on this event, and you see other people posting, you connect to each other. That's my gift to you, that you get an opportunity to connect to each other, even though you may be 1,000 miles apart. Do that right now. Go for it now. I can't see you doing it, but I'll check in a moment, and I'll check when I'm on the bus trying to escape the storm. If you want to connect with me, here is here's a link to that. I think, Kendall, there is a link as well, which can be posted into the chat. Put it into the private chat, should it not be there? There you go. So connect, ask question, check out other people's second level connections. Because for the informational interview, you want to look beyond the people you know. And here endeth the lesson. Let me kind of squeeze this back in. Networking can be hard. And the two techniques that I showed you today can help you build networks without networking, without too much kind of pressure on yourself and others. Informational interviews are ways to connect to people through people you know and ask them questions about things. How do you tackle networking and finding opportunities when you only speak English and you're met with, but you have to speak the local language? Well, I'm going to ask, I'm going to say reasonably strongly worded, if you're in a location for a longer time, you must make an effort. It doesn't have to be a super fantastically professional effort, but you must make an effort to learn the local language. I work a lot with people who come from one place and go to another. And there are barriers in some spaces where it's clear if you do not, well, if you want a career in Germany, you will have to speak German at some point. But when I started out working in the UK, and I'm German, oh, now some posts also appear on this side here. There's a lot of happening here in this platform. I wasn't hired for my English, my local language knowledge, and I'd been speaking English for like 30 years at that point in time. I was hired because I was able to bring something else. Now, only speak English can also mean you're bringing a level of internationalism, of being from somewhere else, that can help them understand you. So let's say you are coming from a place you speak English, but you also know the English market on something specific. That's the type of thing that may be hiring you. When you are looking at networking, informational interviews should help you understand if this is an important topic in a company. So if you've networked yourself, if you had an informational interview about a specific company, that's the kind of question to ask. How do they deal with international people working there? How does it work? A lot of companies have English as their main language. You can try to find and identify those in order to balance out the disadvantage of not knowing the local language. And then you need to learn as much of you need to be seen to make the effort to learn the local language. What's my opinion about cold reach out? What should we have in mind and what to avoid? Well, I'm talking about networking here, so that's the classic warm reach out. Cold reach out, not for the shy, can be useful. I've seen people get software developer jobs specifically. I used to have a client who was just amazing at that. He would just write targeted emails at people. Expect a high loss rate. So expect a lot more work in getting people to know and like you. But if you feel like you can write good cold outreach, then do so. The worst thing that happens is someone just basically just blocks you. Well, a good cold outreach though is is direct marketing. That doesn't feel like spam. It's personalized. It's based on knowledge. It's based on understanding. So if you need to do a cold reach out, maybe speak with someone first who has a little bit of an understanding about whom you're going to cold outreach first. My advice would always be to try to find someone who can warm that reach out up a bit. Hey, perfect timing. How can we effectively maintain connections with professionals over time without coming across as insincere and transactional? Well, the answer is don't be insincere and transactional. Right. How do we do this? Well, be authentic. No one expects you to write a monthly update on what you're doing. No one expects a Christmas card. However, so one of the ways you can do this online is if the person you're trying to stay connected with posts, like and share what they do. That's a very nice way of giving social credit to someone else. Also, if you're not interested in them, why are you connected to them? People can go apart. That's perfectly fine. So be sincere and don't be transactional. Be yourself. Are there any networking strategies specific to international students' opportunities in a new country? Yes, it's called informational interviews, and I've just talked about it. The reason is you don't know the opportunity in the new country. So you need to find people who are in that country or have understanding of that country. It's their knowledge that you want to tap into. And I'll tell you, I have done this when I was moving from the UK to the Republic of Ireland. Yes, same language, more or less. But I had interviews with people, informational interviews with people half a year before I moved, because I knew I might be moving. So I reached out, I reached out to someone where I'd applied to a job there before. They helped me. Someone else I met at a conference helped me out. And the fun part is, at that point, I met someone in Belfast online who spent a long time talking with me, talking about entrepreneurship scene and education and so on and so forth. And you know what the funny part is? Turns out that this woman works at the same university now that I'm working at as well. So I walk into a workplace where there is an ally actually already there. And I kid you not, I had that informational interview with her in 2020. And we're colleagues now. And I didn't work in this place. We just connected, kept in touch, and because fate, basically, well, because of the connectedness, we're connected, we're in touch, and we're colleagues now. That wasn't planned, and it wasn't transactional, and it wasn't insincere. As someone who helped me out, and I'm going out of my way at the moment to really work closely with that person, a little bit trying to reward the kindness that I experienced from that. How can we effectively maintain connections with professionals? Oh, sorry, we've already had that question. Okay. Remember, the storm's coming.
Yeah. Thank you, Matthias, very much for sharing. The hour has flown by, and thank you for bringing such invaluable insights to all those that have joined us today. Remember, as Matthias mentioned, networking isn't just a one-time thing. He mentioned many times that it's a process of building connections and creating those opportunities for the future.
It's an every time and all the time thing.
There you go.
Yeah.
So whether you're reaching out online or meeting someone face-to-face, don't forget, like he mentioned, the power of being authentic and intentional in creating that unique story rather than a selling point. If you have more questions or want to keep the conversation going, Matthias did share his LinkedIn profile with you, and you know how to reach out to Hired. We are happy to support you on your career journey. Until next time, happy networking. Take Matthias's advice forward and just try a little bit every day. Best of luck in your career adventures in the near future. Thank you for being a part of this Hired workshop, everybody, and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your contributions. I'll check LinkedIn now, see if you're posting. Oh, yeah.